The gas station was quiet, just the hum of cars and the faint chatter of travelers passing through. Then the sound of roaring engines broke the calm. A group of bikers pulled up, loud and cocky, their laughter echoing as they strutted around like they owned the place. They didn't notice him at first, the older man by the pump, quietly filling up his truck. He was hard to miss, though, with his broad shoulders and sharp eyes that seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 untold stories. One biker glanced his way, then another. A smirk, a comment, and suddenly the quiet man was their target. They had no idea who they were messing with, or what he had survived. As tensions rose, the man stayed calm, but something in his eyes changed. This wasn't just another confrontation. It was about to become a lesson they'd never forget. The bikers circled around, their leather jackets gleaming under the harsh gas station lights. They cracked jokes, each one louder than the last, their bravado filling the air. The older man stayed silent, his weathered hands steady as he finished fueling his truck. He didn't look like much to them, just another quiet stranger minding his own business. But to anyone paying attention, there was something in his stance, something unshakable. One of the bikers stepped closer, testing the waters. "Hey, old man, nice truck. Bet you're not used to handling much action anymore, huh?" The group laughed, egging each other on. The man's gaze finally shifted, locking onto the biker with a calm intensity that made even the loudest of them hesitate. What they didn't know was who he used to be. This wasn't just an old man. He was a survivor of battles most couldn't imagine. The air grew thick with tension, the kind that made people look twice but keep walking. The bikers didn't back down, their jeers growing louder. One leaned against the man's truck, smirking as he tapped his boots against the polished rim. "This your ride? Looks like it's seen better days, just like you." The others roared with laughter, but the older man remained unmoved, his expression unreadable. Inside the gas station, the cashier nervously watched through the glass. A young couple filling their car a few pumps away froze, unsure whether to stay or leave. The bikers weren't just pushing boundaries, they were testing limits they didn't understand. The man straightened, his movements deliberate, his gaze unwavering. He looked past the bravado, seeing more than they wanted to show. He'd seen that same cockiness before, on battlefields far from here, in faces that didn't walk away unchanged. But this wasn't war, or was it? The older man took a slow step toward the biker leaning on his truck, his boots crunching softly against the pavement. The group fell silent for a moment, sensing the shift in the air. The man's voice, calm but edged with steel, broke through the tension. "You're touching something that doesn't belong to you. Move." The biker chuckled, trying to play it cool, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. "What are you gonna do, old-timer?" He sneered, though his voice wavered just enough for the others to notice. The man didn't respond. He didn't have to. His presence alone spoke louder than their taunts. The way he carried himself, the way he looked them straight in the eye, it wasn't anger. It was control. The bikers exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier confidence starting to crack. But instead of backing off, one of them reached into his jacket. The cashier gasped audibly, and the young couple ducked into their car. The older man didn't flinch. His hand, weathered and scarred, rested on the edge of the truck, steady as stone. Whatever was about to happen, he was ready for it. The biker pulled something from his jacket, but it wasn't what anyone expected. A shiny, weathered flask. He unscrewed the cap with a smirk, pretending to toast the old man. "Relax, old-timer. Just a drink to calm your nerves." The group burst into laughter, their bravado creeping back, but the tension in the air didn't lift. The older man's eyes didn't leave them, sharp and unyielding, as if he were reading every move before it happened. Then, without warning, a deep, rumbling voice called out from behind. "Hey, you boys causing trouble again." A man stepped into the light, another stranger, tall and broad, with an air of authority that rivaled the older man's. He wore a biker jacket too, but his wasn't for show. The group froze, recognizing him instantly. Their smirks vanished, replaced by a mix of guilt and unease. The leader of the bikers stammered, "We were just having a little fun, no harm done." But the new arrival wasn't convinced. His gaze shifted to the older man, and a flicker of recognition passed between them, like two warriors silently acknowledging a shared history. Suddenly, the stakes had changed. This wasn't just a random encounter anymore. There was history here, buried beneath years of silence, and the bikers had unknowingly walked straight into the middle of it. The air felt electric as the two men locked eyes. The older man gave a slight nod, a silent acknowledgement that passed like a secret code. The newcomer turned back to the bikers, his voice firm. "You don't know who you're dealing with. Apologize now." The leader of the bikers hesitated, his pride battling his better judgment. "Come on, man, it's no big deal. We didn't mean anything by it." But his tone lacked the confidence it had before. The older man took a step forward, finally breaking his silence. "You didn't mean it, but you'll remember it." His voice was steady, calm, but there was a weight to his words that silenced everyone. The biker leader finally relented, muttering a half-hearted apology, but the older man wasn't looking at him anymore. His eyes were on the newcomer, who walked over and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Still teaching lessons, huh?" the man said with a wry smile. The bikers, confused but eager to escape, backed away and roared off into the night. As their engines faded, the two men stood by the truck, the weight of their shared history unspoken. "Didn't expect to see you here," the newcomer said, his voice softer now. "Not after everything." The older man finally allowed himself a small smile. Sometimes the past catches up with you in strange ways. Just as the moment seemed to settle, the newcomer pulled a small, folded piece of paper from his pocket. "Speaking of the past, I think you'll want to see this." The older man's expression darkened as he took it, unfolding it slowly. Whatever was written on that paper wasn't just a memory. It was a door to a new chapter, one neither of them could ignore. The older man stared at the paper, his jaw tightening as he read its contents. The newcomer watched him carefully, as though gauging his reaction. Finally, the older man folded it back up and tucked it into his jacket. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. "Thanks," he muttered, his voice low but genuine. The two stood in silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken stories hanging between them. Then the newcomer extended his hand. "You've still got fight in you," he said with a knowing grin. The older man shook his hand firmly. "Some fights never end," he replied, his eyes glinting with a quiet resolve. As the newcomer walked away, the older man climbed into his truck. He glanced in the rearview mirror, watching the gas station fade into the distance. Whatever lay ahead, he was ready, because some lessons and some battles were meant to last a lifetime.